Hey there, and welcome to episode 14 of the Power of Practice podcast. The questions you ask yourself define your reality.
Welcome to the Power of Practice podcast with Matthew Tweedy. Discover how to leverage the potential of your unconscious mind so you can create an abundant and empowered existence. Here's your host, Matthew Tweedy.
Hi, and welcome back. Thanks for joining me again. Now, today, I'm going to be discussing the power of questions we ask ourselves. In particular, this question, or this style of questioning, I should say. Now, the title is The Questions That We Ask Ourselves or Ask Ourselves Define Our Reality. Now, why would you want to be able to redefine your reality? I know, sounds pretty elementary, though, sometimes we get used to the same old, and sometimes we get used to maybe forgetting that we can have as great an effect on our reality as we can. And again, as I often say, it all starts with language. It all starts with how we picture it. It all starts with how we define and redefine and ultimately design. And design is often the product of questions we ask. So here we are with many questions that we ask ourselves all the time, and many of these questions are unconscious. I was fortunate enough to stumble across this way of looking at it about 5 years ago. And it, believe it or not, links back to your unconscious mind. So often it's the case that we're asking ourselves all sorts of interesting questions and they go unnoticed. The interesting thing about that is your unconscious mind actually takes notice of all these things. It was Deepak Chopra, I believe, in quantum healing that said that your immune system is constantly eavesdropping on your thoughts. And this is really part of that. I mean, your immune system is just a part of your unconscious. And yeah, it's part of that open ear, you might say, constantly listening. Now, what particular questions are we asking ourselves? I'm not sure about you, but I can share with you some of the questions I used to ask myself, and then I'll shed light on how they are kind of dangerous. I used to ask myself questions like, why am I feeling so anxious? Why am I not achieving the goals that I want to? Or why am I so clumsy? I know. In my teens, I actually held a belief that was the case. Now, the power of belief being that as I held that belief, I used to walk around and knock my elbows and knees on things all the time because my unconscious mind just thought that that's what I wanted, and it gave me exactly that. So, as I've touched on somewhere in this story, but let me recap. Your unconscious mind will only give you what it thinks you're asking for, that deeper part of you that's in charge of instinct, emotion, patterns of behavior, your immune system, and a whole bunch of other things like, the way you perceive sensations and so on and so forth. Your unconscious mind is childlike, and if it thinks you're asking for something, it'll give it to you in some way, shape, or form, if you're lucky or unlucky. Now, the unlucky side of that is if one was to continually ask themselves, why do I have such bad luck? For instance, now luck is a belief as well. And if we buy into a belief, or if we continue to drive home a particular question, it's the equivalent of, having a genie in the bottle. You're rubbing that bottle and you're sending a wish down to the unconscious. So if you're wishing to be unlucky and your unconscious mind thinks that that's beneficial, it's not logical. It's not going to go, oh, why is he asking for that? It's like, well, is this killing me? No. I guess I'll mimic, emulate, and project anything that fits that metaphor, that analog. That's how it works. So I guess I could quote Stephen Blake on this one. He would often talk about the waiter and the person ordering food at a restaurant. Stephen Blake, the creator of Old Pain to Go, brilliant guy, attended his training, and yeah, definitely a wonderful metaphor to think about. You've got the conscious mind that's sending in orders to a waiter and saying, could you give me a serve of very unlucky? And you're going to get a steaming pot of that, maybe on the table. Maybe if you're really unlucky, it'll get dumped in your lap. But the point of the matter is that we ask ourselves questions all the time, whether consciously or unconsciously. And we could kind of, I guess, put them into two categories, constructive and destructive. Here's a question for you. What percentage of the questions you ask yourself are constructive and what are destructive? I know before I was aware, if not questions, then at least messages or affirmations, not all of them were super constructive. Now, this isn't about fault or blame. It's just about noticing it, awareness, catching it, changing it. So how? I mean, how do you change it? I mean, simply it's really tuning into some of that chatter, some of that monkey brain, as they'd say in yoga, and go, hey, hang on. Why am I so unlucky? Why am I clumsy? Why can't I why am I always so broke? Why do I manage money poorly? All that stuff. It's really about catching it and flipping it. How can I start to see solutions that weren't there before? Why do I move elegantly and with grace? Ooh la di da. But seriously, I mean, would you prefer, if you had a choice of asking yourself a question, why am I clumsy, or why do I move elegantly or with strength or with wonder? Why do I have such great posture? Why do I carry myself with a magnetic presence? And knowing that your unconscious mind is going to filter and shape your reality, you will delete, distort, and generalize things out that don't fit that picture. Granted, you might not install the program instantly, but the more we, tell ourselves a story in a way that is constructive, the more we can construct the reality that we desire. So go ahead and notice that. Go ahead and Notice the language you use. Catch yourself through that process and just break the pattern. Stop that. And as you do, as you change that self-talk, changes your reality. The questions you ask define your reality. So as you start to change those questions you ask, wait for it, you are going to redefine your reality. And of course, getting to the pictures that you want is the next step. But behind every question is a picture. Behind every thought is an image or a movie. And this is a prime opportunity to start taking charge of that. Matthew Tweedy, hypnosis.com, the website, of course, Matthew Tweedy Hypnosis, Instagram, Facebook, and the Power of Practice podcast. This is Matthew Tweedy saying, well, firstly, subscribe, and rate and review. Go ahead and do that to get the word out there. Ciao for now, and keep growing and evolving.